everybody, good morning and happy Monday. Welcome back to Reaper Pro Tips with me, your host, Anne, and disembodied voice, Justin, who I have yet to put in my ear. How is everyone this morning? It's Monday. I needed my weekend to be more weekendy. Yeah, coffee, pretty much in all caps, Crowley. That's definitely the sentiment this morning, even for those of us who don't drink coffee. Hello, everyone. Here, I gotta move my chat window here. It's weird. My chat window is weird. There it is. We are winging it today. Yep, Jedi. You got it. I'm too tired to even take pun damage from that. Let's see here. There we go. Hey, Justin, I'm going to remember to remind you to do some polls today. Do you remember the polls we talked about?
Yes, I think so.
I have them here. So,
perfect.
So, yes, once we get some more peoples, we can poll a bit. Poll a bit. Good morning, Cool Pack. How's it going? 1d4 pun damage. Yeah, it's minimal pun damage. I'm at least a level 12 Anne at this point, so I'm afraid that doesn't do much. It's like throwing a house cat at a level 12 adventurer. All right, so we're winging. Hello, VCR. How's it going? Let me go down to minicam. Yep, we're going to try to get some serious damage done on these wings today. I didn't bring my photo reference, but at this point I have it so blocked out that I think I've got it. So we will just proceed. I'm digging out my colors, but Let me see here. Oh yeah, that's right. Rich leather and polished leather and brown liner and russet brown. Oh my. There's our colors. This is where having the black caps and the white caps really helps, because I can see the colors in my drawer pretty well, but it's even better when the cap color is correct. That really lets you pare it down. Brown liner is right here. Russet brown is right there. Pure white is right here. And let's see. I think I was using bleached linen for the light feathers. So let's grab that. Hey, Shadow Raven. Hello, Crow Sand Bones. Do I use a reference? Yeah, I did use actually, unfortunately, I left it out in the hall, but what we're using is a picture I have of an African Harrier Hawk, Crows and Bones. I actually am a stickler about always using a photo reference. I'm a person who believes if you are going to paint an animal, you should use a photo reference, and that's it. Even if you're going to depart from it, like I am here with the blue, where I'm going to make some of the black areas blue, just because we're working on our Sphinx, and she has a lot of blue in her hair, her darker areas. Even though I'm departing from that, I'm still starting from a reference photo so that the patterns are correct, so that they read real. So always, in my opinion, always use a reference. Start from a reference. Start by looking through references to make sure you're putting your highlights, shadows, and colors someplace that makes sense. And it'll help the realism of your creature, even when you're doing a non-real creature. But yeah, sadly I left I have a Birds of Prey book, and that's where I found the Harrier Hawk picture, but it actually does look like, not barring the blue, the wing patterns really are as cool as this. So, and then on the inside, I believe it's got a dark band and then pale feathers. I'll need to go and double check that one on my phone. Except that I left my phone somewhere. Oh no! Oh wait, there it is. Yay! I switched up my area. I no longer have an obvious place to put my phone, so it's if I need photo references, I'm like, oh no! But yeah. But my original reference is from an actual archaic book, so to speak. Not digital. Though I am a big Google Images fan as far as finding good reference photos for things like wolves and leopards and, birds, anything. Cool Pack. Pathfinder was made. They're an extension of both. Is I think the best thing. We used pretty much used Bones paint technology in them, but keep in mind that Bones and MSP are so similar. Really, it's just other than the new technology for the metallics, and me understanding a bit more, because it was the last line I did. Bones and Pathfinder are the last lines I did, so they really integrated like all of the stuff I had learned. But all things considered, there isn't so much of a huge difference. Like they're not like super separate. Like a lot of people like want to kind of categorize things like that, but I mean, they work together just great, and you will find a lot of really good high coverage paints in the core line, just like you will find slightly more transparent paints in the Bones line, just because that's the way the pigment works. So the answer is Pathfinder is more formulated along the Bones line, especially with the metallics technology, but you're still gonna end up with a couple colors here and there that are more transparent, just because the pigment is more transparent and there's only so much we could do. Especially when you're trying to hit a specific color with the licensed lines, where you have an actual Pantone swatch that you are trying to nail. It's just that. MSP versus Bones. Man, I just did this. Did I just do... No, I just did... Actually, did I? I haven't done a video for it, but I need to do a video for it. All right, I've been answering this question a lot lately. MSP was the first line I did. It has things like primers, sealers, special paints like liners and clear brights, and it's organized in triads. So essentially, it's got a midtone, shadow, and highlight, usually in every 3 paints. Some of them are exceptions, like the off-whites triad is just a group of off-whites, but otherwise the triads are made to give you training wheels if you're not good at mixing. But beyond that, Bones was just me using all of my knowledge to create a set of more vibrant colors, but with higher coverage, right? And there is some new paint technology in it. The metallic paint technology is new in Bones, and thus in Pathfinder for the most part. But otherwise, other than that the formulation tricks, and the fact that we're using a lot of what we call high solids pigments, which is high coverage, high density pigments, which is how HD got its name. That's what helps coverage in the Bones and Pathfinder line. But otherwise, I mean, it's all MSP, and it all works like MSP. That's why you see me going back and forth between the 2 lines so often on these videos, is that when it comes down to it, other than coverage and the way the lines are organized, and the fact that core has all these extra things like flow improver and brush on sealer and liners and clears, they're all like MSP. That's why it's MSP core, MSP Bones, MSP, Pathfinder. Yeah. Cool Pack, I don't mind, except that I just went through it again. And this is just a proof that I need to do a video for my Patreon that's free, that I can just say, go over and watch this. Because it is a question we answer a lot, and don't feel bad about asking it. There's new people in here every day. For me, it was just like, oh no, I just answered this. So don't worry about it. It's just another incentive for me to do it for Patreon, so that people finally have that answer, and I can go into a little bit more detail. Hello, Trouble. Trouble's here. We can have a party. Well, Bones isn't broad in those areas because it was originally based off of trying to fill holes from HD. So essentially, Cool Pack, you're going to notice weird stuff because when we made Bones originally, HD was still in print. And so what I did is I laid out HD, and then I essentially saw holes in the colors, and I planned the Bones to fill those holes. But then when Bones sold better and HD was canceled, all those blues that I had been utilizing before as part of essentially one big group, HD and Bones, all those blues got canceled except for like 1 or 2. And so that's why you don't have a lot of blues in the Bones line, is just that those, except for Dragon Blue, those HD blues didn't port over. So that's why you've got that issue. Although actually, to be very honest, when I look at my blues that I use, like, I don't use a lot other than like I use the core colors that I use would be the ultramarines and cyan blue. And then I use void blue from Bones. I use dragon blue from Bones on occasion. I use tropical blue from Bones all the time. Otherwise, like, that's all you really need. I mean, just add white for highlights, really. Yeah, well, like I said, ultramarines and cyan. Those are your best in shows. Hello, Shadow Spawn. Hey, thanks for the resub. 17 months, awesome. All right. So, all right. Now we actually need to like mix up some paint. If you guys have any more questions while I'm mixing up paint, shoot! 4-2 rich leather and white, plus 1 drop of polished. I was very specific with this starting mix. 2, 3, 4. Plus white, plus 1 drop polished. I have these wings are very, very specific in what I'm using, like the colors, because I was trying to match my color reference. Good kitchen sink. We are peachy. We are working on wings today. I am mixing up my colors because I got derailed by questions. And I was bad. Oh, come on, Iffy. That's easy. Actually, I was told that apart from any choice on my part, I would be a Border Collie because my energy level is too high for a Shiloh Shepherd. I like to believe that I could be a German Shepherd, but my hair is probably too long for German Shepherd. So I'd have to be a long-coated German Shepherd, or I would be a Border Collie. Because I do seriously hyper-focus on things, and I do have a lot of energy, and I do have a lot of things that I have to be doing. I'm an Anne who needs a job. So... It's not even done yet, Wolfwoman. I'm still, like, adding in details. They're pretty much we were working on the one side, and then last time I was working on just highlighting this side to show people how it's going to come up on the edges. This is based on an African Harrier Hawk, so it's used an actual bird pattern, albeit not with blue. The blue is being added because Sphinxy has blue, and she needs to have her wings look good on her. See what I did there? So yeah. The Sphinx is really good. Hey there, Bob and Julie. Speaking of summoning the sculptors. Boing. There's probably a cooler noise to use for sculptor summoning. Yeah, Shiloh's, I mean, the breed that I have is you know, a lot like German Shepherds in appearance, but much lower key. Although I do have my moments where I am lower key, but in general, there was actually a dog show judge that told me that it was a good thing I didn't have a Border Collie because that dog would be like hovering like 8 feet off the ground at all times because my energy level would just key up the dog. So it's actually good that I went for Shiloh's instead. Yeah. Oh, I have many secret powers. Does that mean it's really hard to housebreak you, Shadow Raven? Because that's the downside of Basset Hounds. Is they are notoriously the hardest breed to housebreak. That is their reputation. So be careful when you say that, because if you say it around anybody who's had a Basset Hound, they may kind of give you an eyebrow. Yeah, Valandar, that's what Victoria Lamb of Victoria Miniatures has. She has beardies. Yes, nice dogs, but energetic. All right, so we've got our base wing color, our base light wing color. That's the color that we laid down here, and we're going to need it because we're going to need to highlight the edges of some feathers. Then I have to get some dark wing color, which is rich leather, brown liner, and russet brown. Let me show you guys all the colors that I'm using today. So my brown range goes from a fairly light golden brown all the way down to an almost black brown with brown liner. So these are what I'm mixing together. And I chose these colors because I was mixing to try to hit a specific photograph. So that's, otherwise I might have gone simpler if it was just me trying to make up a color scheme for the wings. Hey, Masara, thanks for the resub. Ooh, Subiversary! Everybody dance for Masara's Subiversary. Happy Subiversary! Happy Subiversary! Happy Subiversary! It depends on the day if you may or may not be housebroken. Oh dear. Yeah, it is an interesting way. I mean, like I said, it was totally my limited attention span, Kroniko, where I was feeling like I wasn't getting enough done and it would keep me from painting and finishing things. So for me, it gives me that little bit of, whoa, I finished a part. And then I want to do the next part to see how it works. Now, you do have to do more tuning at the end, usually, with my method. But it's entirely you and your painting style. If you have no problems keeping interest in a project, even if everything is half done, just go for it. But for me, I really need that reward of finishing each part to keep me interested in a model. So, I do a lot of lining crows and bones, but on this model, the brown liner is mixing. Although Sphinxy does have a lot of lining in her. Hold on. Let's get her in focus. Outside of everything else. Ah, no, not zoomed in. Focused. Boop. All right, so on Sphinx, you can see a lot of the lining, especially around the jewelry. So you can see where I've lined around to bring these out. It's especially important to line around these just because the gold color is going to be so close to her fur. Lining around the bracelet here. All of this is lined. All of the jewelry is lined. The eyes are, of course, lined because Egyptian. But really, because she's got all these little segments, you really do have to line to bring everything out. It's highly recommended. Otherwise, everything's just going to kind of run together. You're not going to get the really bright pop, all the individual parts standing out look. It's just not gonna work nearly as well. So yeah, she still needs some work. We have a lot actually of highlighting on some of these bigger jewels. We've got her ears still are kind of like just sitting there, and these little beads next to her face need to be colored like all the rest of the jewelry. But I stopped to line and to start on the belt. So Hobby Butterfly. That would be a fantastic name. You should have done that one. But yeah, so lining, in my opinion, I use a lot of lining, but I will actually qualify that by saying I use a lot of lining as long as it's a 28 millimeter miniature. When I go bigger, when I paint busts, then I tend to use dramatic shading, not lining. Unless there are very small details that really do need lining, and then, you know. So essentially what I'm saying is when you've got small details, whether it's because you're painting a 28 millimeter mini or because you're painting something bigger that has really fine detail, line. Even if you later decide it's too bold and do some glazing to kind of knock it back, it's still going to give you what you need to make everything stand out. Because lining, what you're doing with lining is you're doing spot shading. You're doing like very simplified shading. And on little tiny things like that jewelry, you really don't have a lot of room to do real shading. And so lining lets you introduce the contrast you need to have details stand out without like having to do a lot of gradient shading on areas that are so tiny you really can't do it. So I mean, that's what lining does. That's why lining became a thing in miniature painting back around, it was late 90s, I want to say. That lining really started taking off, and then Confrontation was famous for using it, Confrontation models from Rackham, and that's when everybody started really working on their lining. Before that, there was a lot of using just washes for the same purpose. But lining is a bit more precise and keeps everything lighter and doesn't dirty it up. So, blue and brown, but it depends on the model. Like, I use blue for certain things, Crows and Bones, and I use brown for certain things. If I'm doing a model with a lot of blue shadows, I'll use blue liner. For like her, I'm using some blue shadows on her skin and stuff, so I'm using blue liner on her. But for a naturalistic look, I tend to go for brown. I like blue as its own for a color, so I often will mix white into it to create a blue-gray color, because I love the color that blue liner makes when white is added. So I actually use blue liner more as an actual paint, and I use brown more for just generalized naturalistic shading. Regular paints. Define what regular paints are. Like, are you using Games Workshop? Are you using craft paint? If you're using craft paint, you're just not going to be able to line very well. I hate to say it, but their pigmentation and their bases just usually don't lend themselves well to it. You can try. It's a possibility that they're using a higher coverage pigments now that organic pigments that are high density are getting more common and less expensive, but it really varies. Oh, okay. So you're just using MSP. Well, I do that all the time. I mean, mostly I use walnut brown. If I want a really solid line. The difference is, Coolpack, that the liners are made to be slightly translucent. So you don't have to lay down a big cartoony line all the time when you're using liners. And you often don't want to. You often, if you're going for a more natural effect, you don't want that big cartoony line. But walnut is what I use when I do want a bold line. It's what I used, it's what I used on Sphinx, I think, because I had so many tiny details to do and I had to have that line be heavy. So I use walnut. I would probably thin it about between 2-to-1 and 3-to-1 paint to water. I don't know. I always just tune it and then try it and see if it's dark enough. If it's not dark enough, add a drop of water. But you do need it to be pretty darn thin to come off a really thin lining brush well. So really, this is where you get to experiment and kind of dial it in yourself, and that'll help you learn paint consistency. All right, just checking up. They may replicate ambient occlusion, but the real thing to keep in mind is that they create contrast. Valandar. So yeah, it's cool. It's cool, but for beginners who may look at ambient occlusion and go, what? Really all that matters, guys, is that you're dialing up the contrast. The more contrast you have, the more your details stand out. The smaller the model, the more contrast you need. When you get bigger, you don't need as much contrast. So then you can focus on like fine detailing and textures. So the bigger the model, the more you can focus on textures and surfaces and subtlety. And the smaller the model, the more you kind of need to pop the details for them all to stand out. So yeah, stuff. All right. And so many questions today. 4 drops rich leather, 1 liner, 1 brown. So let's mix our brown here, our dark color. So we're starting from the same base. We're still starting with 4 drops of rich leather, which is part of what makes these colors work together. Since I'm using the same color as the main body of both of these colors, and I'm just going dark with one and light with the other, it means that they've got a lot in common still, even though they're very different on the model. And that means that they will work together. Oh, passing out, yeah. Yeah, well, and if people want, remember my class from ReaperCon, Thinning MSP Paints, is still up on the Reaper YouTube. All you have to do is look for it. Free, hour-and-a-half long class all about what consistency to thin your paints to for various techniques. And it is free, and it is online on the Reaper YouTube, and you should go watch it. And if you like it, then you should consider subbing my Patreon, which is patreon.com/paintingbig. I have my water on top of my coaster, but that, painting big, all one word. Because my Patreon is my love. Even if I am like 1 day late on my second video for the $15 tier. Because hair takes a long time to paint. I thought it was going to be so quick. And then I look up and it's like 40 minutes. And I'm like, eek! But we're painting a bigger model for our paint-along too, so. Oh, good. Excellent, VCR. That's good to know. That's good to know. I'm glad that your painting game has improved. Okay, so this is our very dark. Very dark. And then I think I was mostly, yeah, I was using that as kind of a wash over my base color, and that's the shadow color up here. And then my mid shadow is just straight up rich leather. So we're just laying down all our things. Once we have all our colors out, then we can really dive in. But we need all our colors out because that way we can switch back and forth to whatever we need. So when you get to a certain point in the painting process, you really want everything mixed up and sitting there waiting for you exactly where you need it so that you can at any time kind of go back and forth, right? Light is bleach linen plus shadow color plus dab of rich leather. All right, got it. So then we take our bleach linen. I didn't put down actual drops, so that means it's 4. Develop a system for, if you're going to use a well palette like this, it's helpful to develop a system. Like I always start with 4 drops of X and then I add other stuff. So I didn't make a note of how much bleach linen I start with. I just made a note that it's bleach linen plus my shadow color. So usually that means 4 to 1. So that's what I'm going to do. And then plus 1 drop of rich leather to warm. Since this will be out warming out, I'll actually, let me mix this up and then I can show you guys what I mean. So if you just add a very dark color to a very light color and then you combine, you're going to get a grayish color. So what I'm looking to duplicate is these light feather colors, right? Kind of a coffee color. But the reason you're getting gray is because the dark brown necessarily has a lot of black in it. Or at the very least, like raw umber, which is also dark. And when mixed with white, these colors produce a grayish color. It's not very warm. The rest of the wing here is very, very warm. So I'm adding a drop of rich leather, which remember is the color that these two colors are based on. And this will warm up the color, make it more like a creamy coffee color. And that is what these light feathers are. So yeah, whenever you're just adding white to a dark color, keep in mind that it will gray out on you a little. This happens with blue liner. When I add white to it, it makes a gray blue, not a very rich blue. And I like grayed out colors, so that's cool. But if you're using a lot of very vibrant colors, you don't want your colors to be too grayed out because it won't match very well. Oh, good. Thanks, AJ. Yay! I'm glad things are in a better place for you. I know this, oh gosh, 2020 and everything, all this stuff has been so very, very difficult. But hey, you have a lot to catch up on. That's the good news, right? All right, I need to mix up this rich leather, and then we're all good. We can show you guys what we're doing here. I should have left a hole for the rich leather. Because so essentially what I've done is I've made a triad here. I made my own. So rich leather is the midtone. And then I added russet brown and brown liner to create a dark shadow for it. And here I added white and a little bit of polished leather to make it go a little more golden, to make a highlight for it. But because all of these colors have rich leather in common, they're all going to work well together. And then this one's a little bit the odd child because it only has a little bit of rich leather in it, but that's because I want those light feathers to really stand out. The other thing that this works for is highlighting the really dark feathers. Now that I'm going to start really blocking in some of the darker stuff on these feathers, I'll probably go down to pure brown liner. Probably I went down to a brown liner and russet mix is my guess. And then pure black on the very edges. So what I'm going to do is mix that up. But it helps when you're making your own triad. I have not signed up for them, actually, 9 cents, because I really did my free class for the last one. And I kind of don't have a lot of class subjects actually pre-made at this point. I need to really redesign my class curriculum because so much has changed. Okay, guys. So even when you're me and you think you know a lot, you still are changing and evolving and learning stuff all the time if you're painting and paying attention, right? If you love the hobby still, if you haven't gotten burned out. So a lot of stuff has changed and almost all my old classes need to be reworked. So I did not sign up to teach this time. Also, I teach every morning. So, I looked at that and I'm like, I'm here all the time. So I'm not doing anything formal. I'm actually taking advantage of the fact that I've got a lot of time till ReaperCon to maybe design some new classes. The other thing that kept me from doing it is the fact that they're all on Zoom and I really prefer Twitch. So I just decided I would just teach as usual and take the opportunity to redesign a lot of my classes. Like if I taught painting faces now, it would be a whole different ball game than the class that I would have taught even last year. So it's sometimes you've got to stop and like if I've been teaching color theory for eons, I need to take a step back because now there are things that I would teach with color theory that I wouldn't have even touched on before. So all of my classes, all the classes that I have ever taught need a redo. Well, except it's already out there, Hyper Bunny. Like I said, you can just go to the Reaper YouTube and you can watch my class. So then it's like, well, why would I teach it again? It's like, that's the thing about it, right? Is that when you're me and you're doing stuff on Patreon and all that kind of thing, you have to keep an eye on like what you give out that's totally free, right? And you have to tool your stuff. If you know that it's going to be on the internet forever, you got to kind of create content with that intention. So it's like, I really want to take a look at what I'm teaching and maybe create some content that uses pieces of things that I've taught on the Patreon, but nothing that's going to just shortchange and devalue the Patreon, right? So I need to do like something like that. And it takes a lot of time to design a good class, guys. Make no mistake. To make a class that fits inside of a time period that you need it to do and that is structured in such a way to really be accessible and exciting for a student. It takes time. So Yeah, you can literally watch it again. Yeah, I can't do that. Yeah, they're on Zoom, Kerniko, I believe. That's what I read when I read the instructor emails. I thought I saw they were going to do all Zoom. So I was like, figured that I would give this one a miss and I would concentrate on getting some exciting new content done for ReaperCon. Because ReaperCon is like the one that I really am like, yeah, let's do it. So yeah, ideally I would be able to put together some really cool new little things for ReaperCon. I think so, Chibi. I'm not sure on that. Justin, do you know? Do we still do my stream on Friday morning of the Reaper Virtual Expo?
Uh, Probably not.
Yeah, see, but except that everything is on, so it's just they don't want me conflicting with the early content. Is that it? Because they're not doing anything on Twitch, I thought.
Yeah. So we took the no classes on Twitch approach.
Yeah.
This particular go around. However, I will say that the only time slots in terms of scheduling for Twitch that I actually still have open is from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. on Friday. So it's a 4-hour block that, you know, we may still end up, you may still have a show. It's possible.
Yeah, well, oh, 10 a.m. to, you said to 2 p.m. on Friday? Yeah, totally. So that would be great. Yeah, well, I'll keep it up in the air then. Maybe we'll do something extra, guys. Maybe we'll start a different model. Maybe we'll whip out a different model that's not in our normal rotation if we have a show during RBE. Maybe that's a good compromise where you guys will, you know.
I think if you decided to do something like crazy hard or crazy, like as long as the angle on it was not to teach.
Right, yeah. More of a show. Yeah,
cool.
showcase, right. Yeah. Exactly.
Put on a show, Anne.
Yeah, put on a show, Anne. Long as I don't have to like dress up in it in like the belly dancer costume, because I'm not up for that. I don't think the internet needs that. So
is that the only costume you have out? Like all the others?
I have my goth club gear. I could, I also could wear my Renaissance fair outfit with the outrageous hat. But yeah, I do have a couple costumes, but alrighty. So we're getting our little black bits lined up there. I think I need to trim down the one over here. Corset. Yeah, corset is good for the back until it's not. I actually have for those of you who watch my D&D stream tomorrow, I'm going to have to cancel. I have a doctor's appointment. Speaking of that, a doctor's appointment with my new doctor, and also to talk about my back. So yes, I am taking proactive steps to address my back issues. Although it is a bit better. It started getting noticeably better yesterday, so we'll see. But I still want to talk about it with her. So yeah, I'll post on my Discord later to let everybody know that game stream is off tomorrow. Must take care of medical things. A panel of painters talking paint. Yeah, like the differences between colors. Everybody's got a very different take on it. Like, Luca definitely believes that you should mix different brands and that you get the best effects doing so. I tend to disagree with that. I tend to think that each brand has a very good usage, and so mixing them kind of like makes some brands worse at this and other brands like better at that but worse at the other thing, and so, but that's the way that, that he paints, and that's his different philosophy. So yeah, it could be interesting to get people's different philosophies on what they use and why and for what, right? Because like, you don't always want to use, like, there are people who paint with the liners just using them like normal colors, and there are people who use them only for lining and stuff like that. Inversion table for your back issues, yeah. I would like to strengthen mine up. I think I'm kind of hoping to, maybe she'll recommend PT Red Links, because I really, actually, even though they beat you up, I really enjoyed my physical therapy that I took right after I really messed up my back when I was still at Reaper. That was like 6 weeks of PT. And then it was hardcore, but I came out of it a lot stronger, and I would not mind a refresher, and then keep more extensive notes on all the exercises so I could continue doing more of them at home. But yeah, so Justin could belly dance. Outrageous hat. It's my outrageous outlandish hat from the Renaissance Fair. So it's a Victorian hunter's cap that sits on the side of your head and has tons of plumes on it. Like, and it's orange. Which is a color I never thought I could sport. But my Renaissance Fair gear is actually like an orange gold. So it actually matches with the the ball gown, for lack of a better term, that I have for the Renaissance Fair. We have not been able to go to the Renaissance Fair out here, sadly, so I have not been able to wear my outlandish hat and my rest of my outlandish get-up. But, yes. Well, maybe toward the end of the stream, I'll go and get my outlandish hat and outrageous hat and show you guys, because I really, really never thought I would want an outrageous hat until I passed that particular hat shop on that particular day and went, that is an outlandish hat, I must own it. It was like something took a hold of my brain and made me go get the outrageous hat. But yeah, I like it a lot. Can't wait till we can do Renaissance fairs again. Looking forward to seeing what the fairs are like out here. Yeah, exactly. My hips tend to lock up, Dogfather, from all those years that I spent working on my feet all day. I got a bit of bursitis in one hip and stuff like that. So yes. All of that. But I want to do, like, I would like to take PT again because they do it right. Like, they build you up correctly. And otherwise, I'm thinking, if I just start throwing random exercises at myself, I'm thinking that, that's probably not a good deal. Yeah. The goth gear seems more appropriate. Yeah, well, I could do the corset. I mean, I have several. But the Doc Martens would be wasted on you guys because you only see me from the shoulders up. All right, so where are we? You're totally distracting me. You guys are like really good at distracting Anne today. Here I was like, yeah, we're gonna get lots of work done on these feathers, and we just like have been babbling all stream. Ooh, wow. Well, at least you're in shape though. If you're doing black belt Dragon Eye, at least you're in shape to shovel snow. You're wearing Docs right now. Yeah, my Docs are in the closet. All right, so if we notice out here, we darkened down the edges of these feathers, and actually I was going to do even more darkening of those feathers. So I really want them to go dark, probably all the way to the edges, and then do new highlights on them. The really dark ones were all like here at the end, but I don't want to just go from really dark to not that dark. I want a little bit of a transition. So adding in some pure black and some of that dark brown that I mixed to really bring those dark colors out toward the very end of the feather. Doing that also helps you get, when you start to highlight the very edges of these feathers, to bring them out and do these bars up here, it helps to accentuate that. So what I will be doing also is taking a bit of this dark brown, not the pure black, but the russet brown and brown liner mix. And I'm going to be bringing that in to add a little bit more drama to these bars by putting a shadow like right next to the quill that runs down the middle, just to darken the area a little bit more so that those patterns stand out a little bit more. You can see how those make it pop a bit more. And then I can also use this color also, and I should, up against the feathers that are overlapping up here to bring out, once I get all these done. There we go. To make those colors stand out, and I already did a little bit of that. I'm just going to go and make sure that I have a nice crisp dark edge there so that everything stands out really well. Oh, nice, Dragon Eye. Very cool. Go you with the martial arts. Pretty awesome. All right, we're going to darken this down toward the top and sides. All right, there we go. So we got that. I'm probably going to bring in the pure black a little bit to sneak a bit of a shadow line in here to make these Nobody will really notice it, but it'll make those light feathers really stand out more. So being sneaky with my little bit of pure black mixed with my dark brown. So essentially what you're saying is that boards had best beware you. Chibi. Boards have something to fear from you. Get out of her way, boards. I always feel bad for the boards. It looks cool though. Oop, I'm dropping my pokey tool. This is not good. So I'm mixing a little bit of my off-white. I want to re-emphasize this shadow right here, but I don't want it to be as strong. There's a bit of real dark paint in there, and it really probably shouldn't be because this is two light feathers overlapping. So you do need a little bit of a shadow here, but you don't need it. You don't want it or need it to be really strong. What you really want more is to bring up the edges with a little bit more of a highlight. Yeah, it's easy to get lax when you don't have the gym open, right? But that's exactly the time we probably all should double down. So many people not getting a lot of exercise in COVID, and that's just gonna not make it easy for us coming out of COVID, right? All right, so let's go over here, and I think I'm gonna put my bars. I think I'm gonna do my shading along the top here first. Now, when we're constructing our little bars here, remember we're doing pretty much just kind of a line, kind of an arc to follow these wings. Like there's one arc here and one arc here. So it goes down and then it cuts back up, just like the feathers do. Same shape as the feathers. So we are going to go, and I'm going to do my dark up at the top here first. Yeah, you know, it's like no guilt. Just be conscious. I mean, I also have my lazier days. I've been a bit more lazy since my back had its moment. Though, to be honest, it's got to be careful of it right after. But my back does feel a lot better when I walk. So it's a motivator for me. Walking has always helped me recuperate from pretty much everything that has ever put me down. Getting the blood moving. My parents are both pretty diehard walkers, though. They're in their 70s now, and they are still very fit people thanks to their walking regimens. So I have taken their example to heart. I use the countertop. I crack eggs regularly against the countertop. I don't like cracking them against the edge of a bowl because I feel like the bowl itself is not very stable. So I use the edge of the stove or the edge of the counter. There we go. So we've got that dark shadow coming out there, just like we've got here. In fact, it's even a little bit darker on this wing, but that's fine. We've got time. What we're using this for is to measure. So guys, we kind of make a note of how much space here is between the top of the feather and the light bar that we're putting in, right? So this feather is a bit longer. It's got more dark. And then the light is going to cut around like this. So I think I'm at the point where I can start laying in the lighter colors, because what you want to see is if you look at your dark, you see how it makes a crescent shape, right? So the light color is going to go right under that. And we're going to use the same color that we used for these light feathers to make it work all together. Your mother's 89 and still walks every day? Yeah, good for her, green users. That's where I want to be when I'm 89. I think it really keeps you working. Like, you gotta move to stay fit as you get older. You gotta move unless you want to not move ever. It's just so important, I think. So good for your mom. It's such a good habit. Oh, yeah. Wyvern eggs. I don't think they're one. Are they half a ton, really? I wouldn't think wyvern eggs would be that big. I bet baby wyverns aren't that huge. I bet they're pretty cute. Like cute little Sheltie-sized wyverns. I don't think they'd be half a ton. Dragon eggs now. Rock eggs definitely would be a ton. Hey, Time Stitcher, thank you. 15 months. 3 months past your sub-anniversary. Yeah. And now you're hungry because, you know, wyvern eggs make you hungry? I don't know. All right, so let's start doing this awesome stuff. We're going to block all of it in. My pale color is a bit thin, and that's good. I don't want it to be like super solid. I want the opportunity still to make it a little lighter when I want to. Here we've got the quill right up against the light feather. So we're going to have to kind of draw that in. And then we're going to have to go and kind of edge around it. Don't really sweat how hard it is to kind of follow these quills down, guys. You can always just take your dark color and trim them up. So just try to kind of paint down the line of it. And if you're messy, don't sweat it. And then you can always take your dark brown and use it to trim the edge up. So by that I mean painting over the edge and making it a little cleaner. So you can always do that. And a lot of these are really quite light, and that's because I was using slightly thicker paint because I want them to really stand out. But here I'm using my thin paint, and I'm just starting the etch in so that I can remember to paint them light. In a fantasy world, who goes? Even Titanosaurus eggs wouldn't be much larger than ostrich eggs. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. There's like stability issues, right? There's actual physics of egg diameter as opposed to, you know, how fragile it is, right? I guess it depends, I mean, also on the exact material. I guess you could maybe have a creature utilizing a slightly different configuration of minerals, maybe, for their eggs. I don't know. It needs to be weak enough for the baby creature to break out of, but strong enough to still protect it and be a good shell for it to grow. So, interesting. Egg physics. Who knew? Yay, porcelain well palette. Good job, Crows and Bones. Okay, so your single takeaway for this palette, Crows and Bones. Here's the deal. Use bigger paint puddles. The bigger paint puddle you create, the longer your paint will stay at the consistency you want it. People who really end up not liking well palettes usually aren't using enough paint in them. Magic does change everything. This is true. All right, I'm going to grab this and start blocking in the rest of these. And once we have our first set of bands, then we add our second set of bands about the same space. So however long the first band was, that's how much area you leave of dark, and then you do another band. And you don't have to be precise about this, guys. I mean, animals in nature are not like totally super symmetrical and, you know, at all times and things. Do remember also to mostly focus your light toward the outside of the feather. You can leave the center a little darker. No biggie. If you feel like we maybe got a little bit too much of a shadow. Some of these wings, some of these wing feathers had a little bit darker parts. Like there was more of a the feather had a slight split in it. So you can either embrace that or you can just paint over it so that it's not as evident. It's up to you. When you put on kind of a heavy wash and you see like some very dark spots, that usually means it's a larger split in the feather. So. And utilizing those, like creating larger splits at the edges of your feathers, can create more of a realistic look. Just the little every little detail that you do helps. Let's see here. Yes. It is counterintuitive, but it's true. Bigger paint puddles waste less paint, not more. The only exception is when you're doing a tiny touch of spot color and you don't need that color for anything else. And then I don't even make a full puddle of it. I'll usually just put a puddle up on like the raised area, like right here, and just add a tiny bit of water and just make a little blob if I only really need that color once. Alrighty. And then we're starting to curve around here. And we'll go back up to here. So we make this nice arc. I do feel like I need just a little bit more water in this. So I'm going to add it. If it's not coming smoothly off your brush, you can add more water. It doesn't hurt. And, you know, even if you have to put a couple of layers on, you're fine. I never use drying retarder. Ever. Crows and bones. I don't like what it does to the paint. Remember that any additive you add to your paint is going to chemically change it. So like if you add flow improver, it's going to make it more watery. If you add sealer, it's going to make it a little bit more gummy. Same with wash medium and things like that. Or glazing mediums. It's generally, it might cause it to skin a little bit faster. It does different things. All of these additives do different things. And almost every additive, although not so much with the sealers, but like the problem with drying retarder is that although it makes your paint dry slower, it also really hurts how it adheres to the model. Unless you use a very tiny amount. So what my advice is if you find that you need drying retarder, although honestly with a well palette you shouldn't, but in very arid climates maybe, then you should add just the tiniest amount you can. Even a little bit with those things goes such a long way. But really what you're depending on with the well palette is just plain physics. Just plain surface area to amount of fluid ratio. So evaporation rate. That's what you're dealing with. So the more arid a climate you're in, the bigger paint puddle you need to build. And if you're not in an arid climate, but you're in a basement with a space heater on, guess what? That's an arid climate. So you just kind of like go and start with like maybe 6 drop puddles. 6 drop puddles with 1 or 2 drops of water. Kind of judge how long you can paint. With me on these shows, typically I'll need to add a drop of water at about the 45-minute mark to my mixes. But it depends. It depends really on how it's going. Like, yeah, my first color... Okay, here. So let me show you guys. My first color that I mixed up was this one, right? Do you see how the outer edges are, like, really dry? And if I tilt it, I can kind of see that it's got kind of a little bit of a skin right at that edge. So it's getting a little tacky, is what that tells me. And that is my... Whereas opposed to here, where when I tilt it up, this is still nice and sloshy. This has a little bit of tacky edge on it. That tacky edge is your sign to drop a drop of water into it. Just a brushful. Mix it up again, you're fine. So yeah, it's about 45 minutes since I started, and it's time to add a drop of water to the colors that I mixed way in the beginning that I maybe haven't worked with for a little while. I actually don't remember. Reaper calls you on weekends too, so you don't remember what day it is. Weekends and weekdays. Who can remember anymore, right? I know I had that kind of weekend also. I had a working weekend. Just because a lot of stuff crammed into my last week and I couldn't get as much done as I thought. It's not a bad Monday. It's just a Monday. I had one of those dreams where you wake up, you know, it's like 5 a.m. and you wake up and you're afraid that you won't get back to sleep. And then you actually fall back asleep. But the first dream you have is about the fact that you didn't get back to sleep. So your mind is horribly confused because it's like, oh no, I didn't get back to sleep after all. But wait, I'm dreaming. It's terrible. Just kind of set a 45-minute timer when you paint, time stitcher, and judge, right? At that point, like I said, 1 brush full of water, just fine. So I'm going to add a brush full to the dark that I mixed up in the beginning. And I already added 1 to my rich leather. And I add a lot more out the gate. I mean, after my base coat, which is usually only about like a 4 to 1. But after that, I usually thin things down pretty significantly to a 3 to 1 or 2 to 1. Because when I'm doing all this highlighting stuff, I don't need my paint to be very thick. You don't think it's really Monday? Good. But yeah, kind of base it. Just kind of keep an eye on your paint. When it looks like it's a little gummy and it feels a little thick when you swish your brush in it, just grab a drop of water and throw it in. So 1 drop of water, and in my climate, and my climate is a little bit more humid than a lot of you guys probably right now, especially in the winter where you get sub-zero, it gets really dry. Especially if you've got heaters on. So you may need to check every half hour. But, you know, just kind of glance at your paint, drop a drop of water in, mix it up, and go. Like, you shouldn't need, it's not like you have to take a ton of time thinning your paint to have it stay at the perfect consistency. You just have to be aware that the fact that it's not going to stay good for 3 hours. I mean, neither does paint on your wet palette. I mean, it stays wet, but it's, you know, it starts changing viscosity and, you know, depending on the water is wicking up or down from it, depending on how much you're thinning it on the wet palette or if you're just leaving it be thick. So no palette on earth is going to keep your paint at perfect consistency for 4 hours. But if you just get in the habit of checking it, set a timer on your phone, and then just hit repeat, you know, if you're going to paint for like 3 hours. Oh, hey, that reminds me though, guys. We're going to do a new thing on my show, okay? It is 10:30 and I've been painting for about an hour. I'm going to get up and stretch and answer questions. So if you have a question, ask now. I've decided this is a good thing because, one, it shows you guys good habits, right? Hi, everybody. And I'm going to do just a couple stretches and put my arms above my head and put my arm behind my back. So what I'm doing is I'm taking my arm, I'm putting it behind my back, and I'm kind of pulling gently. That's nice for unlocking your shoulders. You'll really feel it in your lower back probably, especially if your shoulders have been locking up. And then the other one, just hold it for like 20 seconds. I mean, everybody should do this stuff. Everybody should get up and, you know, just do a quick stretch, right? And then maybe do some little arm circles, backward and forward. Kind of, you know, move your arms back. And that helps crack your back. Just cracked my back, actually. And then the other thing that is nice is if you interlace your fingers and reverse them and put them up above your head and tilt your head back. That can help stretch and relax your neck. So there. Now we have done some stretches. And it only took a minute. And we feel a lot less stiff. Yes, absolutely. But we're going to do this every week, guys. Or every day. Every day I'm going to stretch because it's going to help my back. And it should help your back too. It's a good reminder to everybody. And you could do it every hour or you could do it every 45 minutes. Again, you could do your water refresh test. You know, your 45 minutes, I'm going to refresh my water and stretch. And this is like, everybody, you all know that this is a good thing, right? It's what they tell us to do when we playing computer games or at work on the computer all day. Get up and stretch. So I'm just going to essentially model best practices for you guys. Whether you do it is up to you. But yeah, it's always a good. I mean, whether you helped to move tons of sandstone or not, although that's pretty impressive, Nomadzy, it's always a good thing to stretch your body and not stay hunched over in this position that we're in all day, right? So yes, definitely stretch. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, Time Stitcher, that the wet palette is good if you're getting interrupted a lot by dogs and kids. Yeah, or pets and kids in general. That makes a perfect sense to me. The other option is to use the well, but put saran wrap over the top, like I do. Just get some cling wrap and just lay it down. It's going to keep it wet. Especially if you drop, what I usually do is if I'm gonna saran wrap the palette and I know I'm gonna end up saran wrapping it, I take my water dropper and I just put 1 drop of water in the wells that are next to these. That also helps increase humidity and keep the paint good. But when I'm, like, if it's going to be a day before I get back to a model and I want all my colors not to have to mix up everything again, I'll just saran wrap it. It'll be good for up to a couple days. I've had it be good for up to 3. Yes, exactly. Refresh water, stretch, and rehydrate. Thank you for the rehydration reminder. There, now we've done all of our healthy things. Yeah, damp sponge is also a super fast fix. Yeah, the lid really doesn't do it. What it does is it keeps pet hair and lint out of your paint, you know. But yeah, if you do a saran wrap and then do the lid, you're golden, in my opinion. Or just the saran wrap. I do saran wrap and just put it over on my side shelf. All right, so let's get on these guys. I need to get another layer of stripes. Oh, hey, Justin, let's poll. So, guys, Justin and I were talking, and after the last time I did green stuff, we got a lot of people watching when I was doing green stuff on, like, Rock Troll and stuff. So, we're going to put up a poll asking if you guys want to see me do more green stuff sculpting. And you know, and that would mean a little less painting, but it would mean that I do green stuff more often on the stream. I didn't know if you guys really were interested in that, and neither did Justin, so we thought we would put up a poll. So Justin, are you there?
I am.
All right, do you want to pop that poll up as would you like to see Anne do more sculpting with green stuff on the stream? Or converting, I guess, sculpting / converting with green stuff. That would be our first poll. Then we have another one after that. So you guys get to give us direct feedback that influences our content. We know how green users will vote. Bob and Julie will just be coaching me at that point. I feel like I've gotten better with it, but there's still sometimes I'm just like, arg, I want Sculpey. Or Fimo, in my case. Gotten fond of my Fimo. For some things. Like, I find it so much easier to sculpt hands with Fimo. I don't know what it was. I tried to do it with green. And green mixed Fimo. And the armature. And I, like, got it to go to a certain point. And then I was like, arg. But then I went and did it with Fimo. With just Fimo. And it was like, yay! All right, so poll is up, guys. Please vote. Do you want me to do more sculpting and conversion stuff with green stuff, with putty? Because we could totally plan around that, especially since we're getting to the point on several of these figures where they're getting close to done. So I can factor that in when I choose new lineup of figures, you know, when we go for our new selections. So please do vote in the poll. And let me know if you want me to use more green stuff. Because right now we only use green stuff like once every several months probably, right? Because usually it's when I get to basing. But I can plan more to do more different stuff with it. And maybe we can even do some mixes of Fimo and green and kind of demonstrate how it's different and stuff like that. So that you guys can have the tools. I'm just going down the quills here, the middle of the feathers, even though my paint is pretty thin, so I'm not getting a really solid line down the middle here, but I want to mark it in so that I've got it, so that it reminds me to go over it so that it's bold like it is over here. Since I have the light paint out. No, actually, because green cures through a heat reaction, Robin. So essentially, when you mix just a little bit of Fimo with it, it changes it. It gives it different qualities that are closer to the Fimo, and the heat reaction from the green will actually bake the Fimo. Yep, what green users said. No need to. That's what makes it so cool, is it lets you make your green stuff act a little closer to traditional clay, but you don't have to bake it. It's pretty cool. It's pretty darn awesome. Just getting these guys in here. Oh yeah, just don't use too much Fimo, right? Because you need to have enough green to create enough of a reaction to bake the Fimo. No, not even 50-50. I'd say, is it 2-to-1, Julie? Yeah, that's mostly what I do, Agent Marble. I've never done, like, a scratch sculpt. Although I've been tempted for a long time. Maybe it would be fun to, like, try one here and there, and you guys can watch me screw up, and Bob and Julie can coach and say, well, the best way to do this is not the way you just did it. No more than 25%. Got it. No more than 25. So that'll be a 3-to-1. So three green stuffs to 1 Fimo. You can also use Super Sculpey. You can also use Epoxy Sculpt, Aves. You can also use Milliput. Any of those, Robin. You can mix all of those with the green stuff, and it changes the way it acts. So experiment, as I'm always telling you guys. Have fun. Play. Don't like, so okay. So when I say play, I mean when you go to, like, do stuff like this, don't, like, be doing it because you've decided to do this big project that requires it. Instead, just mess around. Like, create a project out of nothing. Like, just say, I'm going to do funky bass, and I'm going to try this. That way it removes the pressure to try to do something good the first time out, and you can just experiment with it. And if you get something really cool, then you're going to be like, oh, awesome. You know, but if you muck it up a bit, you aren't going to be heartbroken because the only thing you'll have done is, you know, used some of your time. And it isn't even wasted time because you learned stuff. So let's see. Have you guys voted in the poll? Let's see here. Oh, wow. Lots of people want more. Wow. Look at that, Justin. That's cool. Excellent. Hey, Wavy. Remember, vote in the poll. I asked people if they want to see me do more conversion stuff with green stuff and sculpting and basing stuff, like sculpting on bases and creating things. It'll be good exercise for me, too, because, you know, I don't do a ton of it. So I can try to sculpt things and see how successful I am. And we do have our pro sculptors as guests in the chat. So, you know, like I said, Bob and Julie can coach me and tell me if I are doing it wrong. But it looks like lots of you would like to see more green stuff, so. Honestly, I would look at pictures I would look up Hunchback miniatures and see, like, how they've done it, but usually you're going to be building up a rounded mound. The problem is that as long as his head is forward, you won't have a problem, Nomad Zeke. But if something has an upright, it's really hard to make something upright that has an upright stance into a hunchback because you have to change the entire orientation. Oh, don't use colored female. Interesting. I didn't even think of that. Green users. Interesting. I will tell you, because I actually did use a brown colored Fimo, just a really kind of like a sand color almost, a brownish sand, on one of my models. So I'll let you know if I see bleed.
Well, Miss Ann, with an overwhelming majority, now we only had about 40 people participate in the poll.
Yeah.
But of those 40, it was like 38 to 2.
Yeah, good. So yeah, we'll probably throw a little bit more. Yeah, a little bit more green stuff in then. Excellent. Yeah, I don't know, Nomad Zeke. I don't have a lot of time to like dive in and like try to tell you how I would sculpt something like that. The best I can say is look at pictures. Keep in mind they usually build up a mound over the shoulders. But as far as doing like cloth, that is currently beyond my skill. I do have a friend who does it well, and I may draw upon his knowledge base to try his tricks, which involve a pasta roller, although I will have to then acquire a pasta roller. But yeah, you've gone beyond my skill set with that. So the best I can say is look at other hunchbacked minis and try to see kind of how you would have to build it up. Okay, that's good, Robin. I didn't get yellow. There's just white. There's plain Fimo. Like the professional soft Fimo that I get for Nico is just like a pale gray or white. There's no dye in that. But I do have a lot of colored Fimo too that I got just for giggles. So maybe I'll do some experiments with that. I haven't seen any changing color on my Fimo bits, but it'll be interesting. Did you prime them? Oh, only when mixed with the green you get the bleed. Probably there's just probably a chemical reaction. Interesting. So you either want to use colored Fimo straight up, or you just want to use the white Fimo if you're mixing with green. Got it. Good tip. Thank you. And the other one, the other poll that we were going to put up is, do you guys want to see me work more on monsters or on PCs? We could also split that out and say, you know, PCs or villains, right? Because obviously, like, a vampire is a monster, but it's also just kind of a humanoid villain. So, well, let's just say monsters or PCs. So, are you more interested? Because I do a lot of PCs on here, but I certainly could swap and do more monsters. So this is something I'm very interested in, is if you guys like watching monsters more, if you'd like to see me go a little bit away from the PCs, or if the PCs are more useful to you because you tend to speed paint your monsters and you don't need a lot of help with them. So that's our next poll. Should Anne paint more PCs or more monsters? Player characters is PC. Sorry, guys. Because, like, Sphinxy here is a monster. And I definitely have gotten to do a lot more interesting, like, stuff like fur and feathers and stuff like that on her. And, of course, Rock Troll was a monster. And we did a lot of really cool stuff on him. So I'm just interested to see. I think this is going to be a lot more of a 50-50 split, is my guess, when you put this one up, Justin. So I'm going to take my dark brown, not my black yet, and I'm going to start filling in these feathers, guys. And I'll go out toward the edge. I'm going to try not to totally cover over the edge, but if I do, it's not a big deal, because I'm going to highlight that up. I'm not good at them, Valendar. I wouldn't paint a mech because it's nothing that I have ever done. So I would be pretty much at you guys' level learning it. It's armor. Armor is the one thing that I don't do. Someday I may decide to get good at it, but at the moment, not only, and that, and, you know, like, Reaper doesn't really make mechs anymore. We have some robots, but I would be tending, I mean, it's metal, so I could certainly, like, put one of the chronoscope, like, mechanical things in, but I would be painting it either in NMM or metallics, and I would be doing the same weathering I do on all of my metals, so. Well, right, Anki. I mean, obviously a mixture is, you know, going to give you the most variety, but I do try to switch it up in my subject matter, you'll have noticed. It's not either, really, Royal Llama. It's actually more like almost like a base coat. It's a bit of a thinned base coat. So this is too thick. It is thinned paint, but it is too thick to be called a wash, because it doesn't flow and settle into crevices, and it stays on the upper surfaces. What this really is more like my base coat. Like, it's a thin base coat is what I would call it. What I want is solid color here. Even though when I first darkened down these wings, I left a lot. It was definitely a heavy wash, you can tell, because it outlined all these little feathers. But now for these really dark feathers, I don't want that anymore. I want these to actually be darker, because they need to go to almost black out here. So that I can put, like, blue markings and you know, detailing. So these outer feathers I am painting over dark now that I've gotten to them, like, much darker. And that's simply just because I had set them up being slightly darker just to remind myself that they were. And then when I looked at the bird, I made more of a note of how dark it really gets. And so essentially this was my base coat, and I'm going over it now. Yeah. I did the Ogre Juggernaut. Is that the undead one? I did him, I used him as an example early on in Pro Tips, but we just did some example stuff on him. But he's one I could get a new one of him and put him back in. We did some colored armor on him and some copper armor long time ago. But he is a really good model for metal. And he is a monster, and he is a popular model. So, all those things. Remember to vote. Can you put an option up that is an equal mix of the two? So then the options would be, you know, do you want Anne to paint more PCs? Do you want Anne to paint more monsters? Or do you want Anne to continue to paint a mixture of the two? But that makes it a very easy call, because then everybody who's waffling won't have to actually make a decision. So we're darkening down these feathers. There's a lot of Reaper monsters I haven't painted, and there's especially some great ones that have come out in the Bones Kickstarters. And I definitely was more toward the PC side for a long time. I introduced a bit more monster when I went to this new format of finishing stuff out, right? Like right now we've got the rock troll, the Sphinx, and the living statues, right? So we've got 3 monsters in the mix and 3 adventurers, although I think the dark dwarf could easily be a villain. Start to end, Mighty Jabberwock? That's not my thing. I can't finish a model in usually under 4 hours. Like, if I do, it's just going to be stuff you guys already know how to do. I'll just use like heavy washes, probably a lining underpaint, heavy washes, and some spot highlighting. Like, it'll be fast. It won't be Derek Schubert magic. Like, Derek has this down to a fine art where he's the excellent at good fast painting. And I am not that because frankly, I don't enjoy it. Like, I really, really do not enjoy fast painting. So essentially, because I dislike it, because I just don't enjoy it, I don't do it. And because I don't do it, I don't get good at it. So I have tried over the years. I've been in speed painting competitions, and, you know, mostly I just get frustrated and unhappy. So I just don't do it. I don't consider speed painting to be, like, you know, part of what I do. So the best you could get is, I could choose a really simple model and try to do it in 2 shows. But the other thing is, guys, the other thing that prevents this is the fact that I answer questions all show. Like, we would have gotten much farther on these wings today if I just put my head down and painted, right? So that's the thing. The other thing is, if we did 2 shows, Mighty Jabberwock, there would be no questions. If you want to do that, because it's the only way that you can get, because I'm going to stop and demo and talk, and I'm not going to be able to concentrate on because I think that speed painting takes actually more concentration, because you have to be conscious of time and you have to be very efficient. So for me, that would be just really, it's hard for me and it's not enjoyable. So if you want to see me get frustrated and unhappy with my work, then I can do a miniature in 2 shows. But that's not my thing. Like, you know, like, that's why we have Josh, who's really good at painting, like, you know, fast, you know, good quality, relatively good quality models for the tabletop, right? That's why we have Miniature Monday. Because it's very different, both in style and in the way you tackle it, right? And the techniques that are involved. So I would be very loath to do that. And like I said, it would mean no questions. That means if somebody comes on and needs help, I can't help them, which for me is, like, not the purpose of this stream. The purpose of this stream is to, like, embrace all you guys and answer your questions as well as I can. The only exceptions being like the Hunchback Etten thing, where I'm just not that good of a sculptor to be able to answer that question. But yeah. Nice tabletop quality, huh? Maybe. I'll think about it. I mean, Templars are the easiest thing to do nice tabletop. Anything with armor is the easiest thing to do nice tabletop quality. Because base coat, wash, then you just spend your time on the details that aren't armor. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. That's what we always did is Kuruniko also, is we had a town guard, you know, a bunch, and we had, you know, like a bandit bunch, and, you know, and you just reuse them depending on what you're doing. But really, if you have, like, bandits and town guard, and then maybe, like, some royal guard or kind of elegant armored dudes for elite guard, you kind of have all the humanoids covered, except maybe for pirates, although you could use the bandits for pirates, but... Yeah, I could try to show you guys what my good tabletop is, but it really is, like, I use a lot of heavy washes. So, like, my version of GW contrast paint only mixed up by me custom, which is not really as hard as you think it is. But yeah, I just, I stopped even doing speed painting a while ago because I don't enjoy it. And for me, I'm like, I paint because I like it. I really adore it. You know, I have fun with it. And so any technique in painting that where I stop having fun is the point I stop at. And I'm just the weirdo who has fun doing all this stuff that takes immense amounts of time and fine tuning, because what really gives me pleasure is producing something that I think is beautiful, right? That I really, really enjoy looking at. So I'm willing to spend any number of hours, you know, to get something to that goal. And painting something fast actually does not give me really any feeling of reward, even though it's done. Because it isn't, you know, it isn't something I can really look at and enjoy. All I do is look at it and say, wow, you know, I could have done so much better and made this look so much more cool. Oh, you might have missed the... Yeah, it should have been up top on the... Did you put up the PC versus Monster poll, Justin?
Say that again?
Did you put up the PCs versus Monsters poll?
No.
Okay.
Sorry.
So you want to do should Anne paint more A, PCs, B, monsters, and for those people who just can't commit, C, I like the current mix. I'm just doing some pure black to just kind of outline these little quills. Bring down some shadows. Yeah, so Justin's going to put the PC versus Monster poll up shortly, guys. Just be patient. We'll get there. I was always curious, just because I'm curious if there are people who really would like to see more monsters, if I should shift my mix a little bit. And, you know, like it was pointed out, you know, included in quote-unquote monsters can be things like vampires, villains. I have been painting a lot of good characters versus evil characters, so I should probably paint some villains. I'm going to add some pure black down here. This feather, this big long feather, is one that gets a lot of pure black. And I do need to add in a lighter area to paint blue. And once again, I'm keeping like the edges a little bit lighter, but I really, on this one, I should paint it all the way out because the edges of this feather are highlighted up to kind of a blue-black, not to brown. So, since it is the blue accent feather, I may do another accent on the feather next to it, actually, so it's not just one blue feather, but a couple. Haven't decided. This is something I can decide just on the fly, so I don't need to really commit to it up front. Yeah. Yeah, we did, I mean, we did some claws and teeth in the past, I know that. I haven't done any model with, like, big bones, but I would paint tusks kind of the same. I tend to, I mean, again, look at a natural reference is probably your best, usually they'll be darker. Usually tusks will be darker toward the root. So for mammoth, I would definitely go with elephant references on the tusks. PCs can be repetitive, but it depends really if you're looking at it from a color perspective, and you can do a lot more freehand and, you know, like some other stuff on PCs. I mean, there is almost as much variety on PCs because you have PCs that are wearing fur cloaks, you know, so then you get your fur in. You have PCs with horned helmets, and then you can get your horns in. I think that there's variety in both. It's just like, I will go with you on the textures though, because monsters allow that a little bit more because they're usually larger. I probably wouldn't do anything really huge because it just takes too much time. Although I am thinking about ripping out one of Maldrakar's heads and just doing like a dragon head for you guys. because I've got Mal in the closet. I also wanted to do some green work on those heads, so that would actually fit in with the green work too. Hello, Corvette. I love Corvettes, so I'm all for your name. It's always been my favorite sports car. Since I was a little kid, I always thought they looked so cool. So when my dad's boss got one, Dad arranged to borrow it so that I could go for a ride in it when I was a kid. I still remember that. It was pretty zoomy. Doing a dragon head? Yeah. Well, and the head is the most fun part. And like I said, I wanted to convert it a bit. So that lets us do both. And a head is doable, right? Head and part of the neck. It's very doable. And I could do, I could sneakily use this to paint my Railger car by doing one head at a time. I always liked the way Corvettes look. Mustangs never did it for me. I rode in one of the new sporty Mustangs too, and that was pretty zoomy. You could definitely feel the weight of the car. Like Mustangs, like you throw a Corvette into an accident and you're probably not walking away unless they've changed a lot. But you know, Mustangs have some real body to them. To each his own. Everybody likes different kinds of cars, different kind of styling. But when I was a little kid, our neighbor across the street had a electric blue Corvette Stingray, like 70s. And I just loved how that car looked. As a little kid, that was my thing. Alrighty. Let's see here. Yeah, except that I'm using washes Jabberwock, so it gives you, I mean, I guess it gives you a decent starting point, but you can also, I don't know. You have not convinced me, Jabberwock, but I will think about whether I could do it in a way that makes sense to me. Okay, so poll is up. Should Anne do more PCs, player characters, or monsters, or you like the current mix?
It looks like keep the current mix is winning, but only by a few percent.
Yeah. Well, then I can paint the body Twisted Dome because I've already gotten so much of it done. Although the wings are the beast on that model. Huge, huge wings. What are you going to do with them? All right, where are we? We are looking at putting a blue stripe, and so we're gonna actually do the back of that in this pale color. Then I can put blue over the pale color. It's up on top of the stream chat. You should see it up there, Cool Pack. So if you look at the top of the chat, you should see it. Oh, the winner already went though. Everybody wants to keep the current mix, but yeah, that poll closed way too fast. A lot of people didn't get to vote, Justin.
It was up for 5 minutes.
Oh, I didn't see it in time to warn people, so they probably weren't
That's
watching.
weird.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like it closed really fast. But I didn't notice it right away. But I wasn't looking at the chat necessarily right away. Or at least not at the top.
No, sometimes Switch doesn't actually, like, when you pop it up, it doesn't actually pop it up for everybody all at once, and I don't know what controls that.
Yeah.
And then that too, the I've noticed the Twitch app itself is really
Oh,
bad
right.
about.
Oh, it is terrible. Yeah. Sorry for the door closing, guys. David is rushing about trying to get ready for his meeting, so.
Makes me wonder if we should almost do like a Twitter poll.
Twitter or
Get a
Facebook?
bigger sample size. Yeah,
Yeah.
Twitter or Facebook, sure.
I mean, we should probably talk about this show every once in a while on our Facebook because we have a huge reach on our
I
Facebook.
agree.
And so, draw people's attention to the fact that this is a thing. And that, also just that because they might like not think with pro tips with the name that it would be a show where a beginner would get value. Also talk about the fact that, we answer all levels of questions, beginner and up. So, all levels. So this is essentially me underpainting where I'm going to put blue. And I need to go and make it a little bit longer. So putting a light color, if you want a brighter color to be really vivid, put it over a light color, not a dark color. So I don't want to put it right over this dark brown or it won't be a very vibrant blue. UK broke from EU. Reaper shipments have been more expensive due to import fares. Are you guys looking for EU partnerships? That's an Ed question. I do know that we had problems, Illithdil. We always had problems with partnerships. That's part of the reason we made the UK warehouse, is that we had so many problems when we tried to do partnerships in Europe before. And so we finally just decided, it was not cheap to build a facility, to rent a facility and build, send a team over there and everything. It was not cheap. But we did it because we had so much problems with partnerships. That said, we've had some success with partnerships in like Australia. So, question mark? That would be an Ed question. I mean, Ed is usually really good at keeping his eye on like what's happening. So he's known Brexit is coming, and I'm sure he's looked at the options.
I've put up another poll, by the way.
Okay, another poll is live. What should Anne paint? So if you didn't get the first poll, get this poll. And if you voted the first poll, please vote again so that we get your vote again. We cannot just have Twitch add the polls together. Twitch is dumb. Twitch is bad at addition. I probably shouldn't say Twitch is dumb because they probably have their little bots like listening for people to say that, and then they're going to give us a Twitchy stream. I should be like, Twitch is awesome. There. So I'm just putting a dark shadow, getting that light quill to stand out a little bit more. I do HM Road Dog. I don't have it with me though. It's an African Harrier Hawk, with the exception of the blue part, obviously. But everything else, the entire rest of the pattern is very close to actual bird pattern. Really, really down to these two light feathers and everything. That's all based on this picture. So I just don't have my book with me today. So it was the one time I didn't grab my Birds of Prey book to show you the reference photo. But yes, I always work. You know me. If it's an animal, I'm always working from a reference photo. I don't know option. Then you should just say keep the current Max Styles. Because if you don't really know, then obviously the current status quo doesn't bother you, and you'd like both. That's why we have that option. Alrighty, so we're going pretty good. I do need to look at what I did on this other side. You can see the bands are a lot stronger here, because I actually made them more solid, whereas over here I mostly concentrated on picking out the edges. So I have to ask myself which one I like better. I actually think I like the solid a little bit better, so I'm going to grab my light color here. I'm going to thin it down just a little bit and make my bars on the first side I did actually more solid, because I like how the effect here looks a little better. Using the wet blending that I did up here, except with darker colors on your bald eagle, might be a good way to go. Although bald eagles, the problem with bald eagles is they're not very interesting. It's all just dark brown, close to black, dark brown, and white. So you don't get a lot of these nice, cool halftones and warm browns and different levels of brown and stuff like that. Let's see. I want to see. Now we are about halfway through the poll, guys. So remember to go poll. I am seeing a lot of people really wanting more monsters. So you want both. We have a lot of people who want the current monster. What I might do is just throw in an extra monster. And I can also, like, as I said, kind of like go cross the streams there and just like do a vampire, for example, which is both a, hypothetically a PC and a monster. So we can look at doing that. I do like the dragon head idea. So that could be something that I toss in. Rock Troll's almost done. So there's a reason I'm asking right now, because Rock Troll's almost done, and Dancing Girl, honestly, will not take that much longer to do, because she's getting there. So what I'm doing now, guys, is I thinned down my kind of pale colored paint, and I still want these edges to show up a little bit nicely, because I did put some work into this, but I'm lightening this overall. It's almost a glaze, but I'm just kind of gently painting it on. To try to bring out the bars a little bit. I decided I like how they're a little more solid over here. So now I want to make them a little more solid on this side, without sacrificing some of the detail work that I did initially. So just a little bit of thinned paint. No option for a more interesting bird. Yep. That's all right. So yeah, I think we'll do the dragon head thing and throw that in. And that also lets us add more sculpting because I want to do some alterations on Mal's heads. And then, because I've always wanted to I thought they'd be fun to play around with that way. And then I always had kind of an idea for what I wanted to do. And then, yeah, I'll look around at other monsters and see where we might have some fun. Now, the question is, when I say monsters, are you thinking more like beasts, like animals, or are you thinking more like ogres and, ogres, vampires, gnolls, things like that? Owlbears. Like animal versus humanoid monster. How about that? Yeah. That's pretty cool, Cornico. All kinds of monsters. Green users like all kinds of monsters. They are an equal opportunity monster liker. Well, cool. Because really, when you come down to like ogres and giants, except for the colors, they're a lot like just painting big adventurers. So the nice thing is that they allow you more space, so you can do more stuff. Well, I did dragons ages ago, and I actually did them pretty fast too. Agent Marvel. That was back when Reaper Pro Tips launched. It was Reaper Toolbox. We did it on Wednesdays, and I painted pretty much almost all of Dance of Death, which is Julie's two dragons fighting thing. So I have done dragons on stream before. What it taught me is that I will not ever do a whole dragon on a stream again. It just takes too long. Too long, and you're doing too much repetitive stuff. But doing part of a dragon is enough usually to illustrate the techniques. Alright, so we blocked in those bars a little bit better. Now they're definitely standing out a bit more. Not quite as much as here, but I am going to shade these a little bit more too. So the wings are getting closer. They're getting closer to being in line with each other. Thanks, Hyper Bunny. Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's a lot of the same stuff. It definitely was a faster dragon painting than I would otherwise do. But dragons can easily take you 40 or 50 hours if you're doing a good job. So there are very few actual techniques, Coolpack. Like if you go to my Patreon and I think you actually joined, but there's a free thing. If you look at the public posts, there's a free thing about the techniques, like the miniature painting techniques and the order you should learn them in my opinion. And if you look at that list, it's a very small number of techniques, and the number of actual like mechanical techniques, like actual putting paint on the model techniques, are very small. It's what you do with that afterwards, right? And then you get to the conceptual techniques like non-metallic metals and directed lighting and stuff. Then it's a conceptual technique. It has nothing to do, or it does have something to do with how you put the paint on, but you're not putting the paint on necessarily in any different way than you would when you were painting anything else. You're just thinking about it differently. So yeah, so you may want to look at that. It was a fun little PDF for me to toss together because there's definitely an order to work on things that worked for me. It may not work for everybody, but it's, it was just me kind of putting it out there. If you don't know where to go, if you've mastered washes and you're not sure where to go next, what should you do? If you've done lining and gotten pretty good at it, where should you go next? It's that kind of thing. And it does lay out all of the stuff. So then you can go, okay, I know this one and this one and this one, but I've never tried this, or I need help with this. And it lets you kind of map out your goals ideally. I'm gonna put down some bleached linen in this so I can get these center quills. What have we got? Oh, it is pastime. Pastime to go. Yeah, it's mechanical versus conceptual. Like, because you have to think about how light falls. You have to think about how light travels. You have to think about how it acts. And MM is the same. How do you paint a shiny surface? What do you need to do? You're using the same thing. You're layering, or you're blending, or you're doing whatever. But you aren't, it's where you're putting it. It's the thought that counts more than the actual mechanical, how am I thinning my paint? That's why I call it mechanical and conceptual. Yeah, kind of, Nomad Zeke. I mean, it's a very basic order when you consider that the main techniques, there's maybe 7 of them. Like, not even counting dry brushing, which is kind of its own thing. Because I don't think I actually put dry brushing down on there. Because it's optional in my opinion. Falls under highlighting, and it's just a different style of highlighting. But I mean, it's you've got your base coat, your wash, your glaze, your layering, your wet blending if you wish to. It's like layering itself encompasses so many things and is the foundation for pretty much everything you do in mini painting. So smooth sheer white. Yeah, airbrush. If you were doing it on a dragon, for sure, HM Road Dog. Yep, no problem. We gotta actually wrap it anyway. I mixed up my paint a little bit more, but... yeah, the basics have changed, for sure. Alrighty. Yeah, loaded brush is a little bit... well, that's also optional. Like, my PDF doesn't cover stuff like two-brush blending. Like, which is technically under wet blending. Like, there's like... and loaded brush, which is, just, again, it's like two-color brush and things like that. Those are all just variants on how to use your tool to get the same effect. So I don't ever use two-brush blending. I don't ever use loaded brush. I just wet blend. And I use the brush stroke that makes sense for the surface. So a lot of these things are people, I think, making it more complicated than it needs to be. And you should always be aware, guys, that in miniature painting, this absolutely happens. There's always somebody willing to make it more complicated than it needs to be in order to be a special snowflake. Or just because that's the way they love to do it, right? They could come across a technique like two-brush. I'm sure that, like, two-brush blending is because, like, Fluffy tried it, like, Mike McVeigh's wife, like, worked that on and is like, this is fantastic. This is getting me much better results. I'm going to share it with everybody, right? So it's like, but when you come down to it, you can do two-brush blending with one brush. I do it all the time. So you got to look at it and say, this really works for me. Or, ooh, this is really complicated. Or, could I do this a different way? Everybody's different. Everybody has different mileage with different techniques. So when you do look at my PDF, keep in mind, I'm not giving you all the variations of wet blending. I'm not giving you loaded brush, two brush. It's wet on wet blending because you're putting down a wet color and a wet color and you are blending them together. Two wet colors. Wet brushing. Well, yeah, that's what I call side brushing, Pendrake. I just use more, like, thinner paint, but less paint on my brush, but I don't, like, brutalize my brush. I just use the edge. I use the edge to paint over the top of things. I mean, technically, that's what... I call it side brushing, because I'm using the side of my brush. But, yeah. Yeah, I knew her. For sure, Valandar. Wet brushing is just painting. Yeah, exactly, right? Anyway, we did get some stuff done. We didn't really get anything done on the lighter feathers, but we got our darker feathers to look a lot closer to each other, which is good. We've got our Sphinxy wings are coming together. Let's see, Sphinxy wings here. Let's give her wings. Like, actually, I need to paint her tail. Here, let's try this. Let's do this for the first time. Now that we're getting them, like, looking a little bit closer together. Come on, Sphinxy, put on your wings. There we go. Here, let's back up. Sphinxy wings! Isn't she pretty? Isn't she pretty? You started like 3 weeks ago. But yeah, so there we go, guys. She's getting there. Our Sphinxie is getting there. I need to really paint her black tail tip, though. That's unnecessary. But yeah, so your wings look cool, but then they look even cooler when you put them on your model. So yeah, there. And then we got to remember she's going to have really light wings on this side, but they're also tilted backwards, right? So you're only going to see them kind of on an angle. She's probably going to have dark feathers along the bottom and light feathers along the interior, because I think that's how the Harrier Hawk is. And so I wanted to stick close. So yeah, so she's going to have more of a profile like this. So we'll think about that when we're doing like our shading on these wings and, you know, what we're going to do. The blue is a fun accent, and it goes together. You see how it goes together now because of the blue in her hair, right? And she's going to have, the blue is also going to be going down the hair on her back here, and it's going to be hitting the hair on the tail tip. So then that blue is going to go all around the model, going full circle. So this is when you've got an accent color, and in this case on the back of the model, the blue is an accent. You have an accent, accent, and accent. So your eye should go all the way around the model. That's ideal. Never put your accent color just down low or just up high. Try to make sure that it's everywhere. Yeah, now you get the blue, right, HM, right? You gotta see the whole thing though, right? And so the tail will also have traces of blue, and there's probably going to be at least one blue gem, you know, in these little white gems that you see right now. There's going to be at least one that's blue. So then we'll have kind of like little bits of blue, and I may put some blue inside these dark spots here. So then you're really making, like, you're repeating the blue all over the place. Then it really like starts pulling together. So when you use an accent color, always be aware of where else you can use it, even if you're using it in sneaky places like highlights. All right, I have to go to the grocery store today, which means I really need Justin to find us a raid. Just to kind of cover what we did today, we actually added in a lot of darker color on our wings, and actually it's gotten a little bit darker on this side. Now we worked a little bit on getting our wings to look closer together. I decided I wanted to lighten the stripes over here. I may actually go in even more solid, and then we added, you know, our white bars and everything on the other side. So we did a lot on wings today, and we also answered a lot of questions. So what we got to raid, Justin? Justin is like falling off the face of the earth. We broke him with the poles.
No, sorry. I was talking to Ed. He's over here talking to me.
Hi, Ed!
No, he can't hear you.
Oh, okay.
Headset.
Are
you ready for a raid?
Yes.
All right, let me find one for you real quick.
I recapped what we did today, and yeah, I have to get to the grocery store, so. Yeah, you guys have a great rest of your days, too. I've got a lot to do today, so I have to hit the ground running. It's definitely a lot to do Monday for Anne. All right, Miniatures Den. We're going to go see Luca. Super fantastic. All right, guys. Scaly highlight alternative. Probably add white to like brilliant green crows and bones. Just to look at, because you're looking for a bluer green to add white to. Brilliant's a little bit middle of the road. Maybe like a little bit of peacock green in there. But yeah. All right. Bye, guys. See you all later. See you tomorrow. Bye.